Continuing coverage tonight with the expected loss of billions of dollars. A lot of tough conversations happening right now at the state capitol and with local school districts. Is education expected to be a major casualty in this budget process? News 5's ALASYN Zimmerman explains the process of funding our schools during these uncertain times.
It's important to know no decisions are final yet. This is still a very lengthy process, and school districts, much like the state, are trying to come up with their own budgets. But without a better idea of the numbers, it's making things more complicated.
Thank you for joining us.
The state's Joint Budget Committee is looking different these days, with lawmakers wearing masks, analysts disinfecting after speaking, and now discussions on how to balance the state's budget with a $3.3 billion shortfall.
Billion with a B. We've got our work cut out for us.
Joint Budget Committee Chair Danae Esgar returned to the Capitol last week. And with the recent forecast, more long days are ahead.
Huge amount. It's probably the biggest deficit we've ever had to try to figure out.
Meanwhile, schools remain closed for in-person learning, and district leaders are trying to figure out how to balance their own budgets.
Generally, we have about a 6-month window to adopt our budget. Given the current circumstances, it's going to give us about a 30 to 45-day window.
Normally, the School Finance Act is finished and signed by now, but with the legislature taking a pause because of COVID-19, it's slowed down the process, and school boards would typically have a few months to get public input and get the budget passed before the state's fiscal year begins July 1st.
Best case scenario is a flat budget.
In District 11, the board is looking at 5 different scenarios for its budget.
We're expecting near the worst case scenario, which is approximately a $30 to $40 million cut in District 11's budget next year.
It's going to be a shared story for school districts across the state. Academy District 20 is proposing a 10% cut, which is about $16 million of its budget.
However, we certainly know that we need to be flexible and nimble.
While there's some cost savings right now not physically being in school, it doesn't account for the majority of its budget going towards salaries for staff, which is something districts want to avoid making cuts to.
But we are trying to minimize those impacts the absolute best we can for our students and for our staff.
The coming weeks will make a big impact on how this process goes as lawmakers try to figure out how to keep the state functioning with less.
I'm confident that we're going to figure out a way forward and we're going to figure out our way out of this, but it's going to hurt a little bit.
On Wednesday, the Joint Budget Committee will be hearing a presentation from the Legislative Council's chief analyst on the School Finance Act, and that will then help lawmakers and school districts have a better idea of the numbers. We'll continue to follow this process and let you know what happens. Always watching out for you, Southern Colorado. ALASYN Zimmerman, News 5.